I think it's a work session. I don't think
I don't
there's,
remember.
I don't even remember either. I don't think we have to do much. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we dive in.
We don't publish minutes, right?
Awesome.
Well, so you have your budget narrative, and that's broken down by all of the that you see on your green sheet on expenditures page. And then just some of it's clear more in depth than others, um, just based on what it's comprised of. So, but also the page that you have is this is what you'll actually also have in your board packet for October. This is the second. Yeah, this has got a few updates on
Okay.
it from the one that you got in September.
Okay.
Not a whole lot is different on this one. Um, we lowered a few things in materials. We made some adjustments in materials on that, and I changed automotive on that. But for the most part, everything else is the same as that first one. So I don't know. I guess it's more about you. Feel free to, if you want to. I don't know if you want to do it. Start at the top and just kind of see if anybody has any questions on each one of these.
Well, I thought maybe I was thinking, since we haven't really seen the narrative, maybe you just kind of, you don't have to obviously read it verbatim, but kind of just give us
Give you the
the
gist.
gist of it, and then we can maybe see if there's questions going along, especially on the personnel. Like we go into some pretty good detail here, and so maybe just kind of walk us through.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, the personnel, as you can see, is the majority of the budget for the year for good reason. And so we have this is our anticipated salaries, and this includes. So we did a comprehensive compensation study back in 2022, and the recommendation, of course, is to relook at that every 2 years to see how the market is trending and where are we in our payroll compared to the market. And so, and Pat worked on that this summer and got some updates on it. So, one of the factors that we're considering when we're projecting this cost for salaries is that Missouri, I think it's going to be on the ballot in November,
It is on the ballot. Yes.
is considering raising the minimum wage to in 2025 it would be 13.75 per hour, and in 2026 it would go up to 15. So this we'll do the bulk of getting there this next year with this budget amount, and then we'll finish off getting and making sure that we're there. I we feel pretty confident that that's going to pass, so this would keep us in line with that. We wouldn't have to scramble to make sure we were meeting that. So
Or that's where people minimum wage. Or
we've got some that are a little bit below what this is projected to be.
This is projected not below Missouri minimum
Right.
wage at the present time,
Right,
which is
of course.
$12.35.
Right.
We've been trying to stay slightly ahead of that anyway, but
Because the market is well ahead of that.
Even in the what you would call entry level
Yes.
positions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
but this also factors in a plan to do a 3% market adjustment to all salaries. And then in addition to that, based on performance evaluations, so performance scales are from 1 to 5, and 3 is meeting expectations. So if you score an overall of anywhere from 3 to 5, which would be meeting up to exceeding expectations, then you would be eligible for performance-based increase as well. So the market adjustment keeps the pay where it needs to be, and then the performance is like a reward kind of for.
And just to clarify, like that 3% market adjustment is to all salaries that aren't at the capped level,
Correct.
but they still have the opportunity to get the performance-based
Yes, in a one-time payment
payment.
type situation, because once you hit your cap of your salary, then you can't continue, like you can't keep building on it like there is a, but we only have one person right now.
Yes.
That's at that.
it's that cap.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that cap moves too. So just like the market range moves, there's like a mid. This is more part like I'll butcher it. You
Yeah.
explain it.
Okay. We have your minimum, then you have a mid-range, and then you have a max. So what it does is this is where your entry level is. This is where you bring your new people in, unless they have experience, and then you could change that a little bit. If they have experience, you can go on up a little higher. But once they reach the max part, they're frozen there. Any associate or any employee would be frozen at that until that max would raise again. So like when we did this market study and we went back and we started changing the minimums, then I projected what the mid would be and what the max would be. So that does move as the market moves.
Is there any addition? I know we have one that's at the max. Is there any additional that will hit that in the next pay year?
No,
Okay.
there's nobody that will get it.
Obviously,
because-
you're not in control of where the mid. You're just looking when you have the com uh, the the compensation study review that gives you the aid to figure out where's the mid, the minimum, the mid, and the max,
Yes,
and see if there's an adjustment that needs to be made.
correct. In the study, they give us the mid, max. They figured that out for us. It's a whole other formula that I won't even go into, but it does give us those three factors. And so we take that. If this is going to be what our entry level is going to be, then I'll figure the min from that and then the max from that. And it's a percentage each time that goes up
And that's
between.
potentially adjusted every 2 years. Or is that adjusted
It'll
potentially
be every year,
Okay.
pretty much. Well, no, every two, only when we do the compensation study.
Okay.
Should be adjusted. We might do, well, if the min goes up, if we adjust the minimum, which we will have to do again next year, that mid and max will go up again, yes. If we don't adjust the minimum, then it doesn't change.
So most employees are on hourly, but I'm sure we have some salary.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And it works the same way.
Oh,
Yes, it works the same way. Because when we did the study, we did it for everyone, for every position we have. So we had the minimum, the mid range, and then the max range.
Just as presented at a yearly salary.
Right. Right.
Instead of hourly.
And all of them gives us the autonomy, I guess. If we have somebody that has that experience or experience that we need, we'll go between the minimum and the mid to bring them in at a higher rate. But we have to have, those qualifications to help us. And then you bring your entry level people that don't have the experience in at your minimum.
What percentage of our staff will qualify for that performance-based increase?
Right now, we're just in the process of doing this. Rebecca Clay and I are going to sit and look at it some more tomorrow. Percentage-wise, probably 97%, 98%
Yeah.
will be in that range. There's very few, and those, again, and they have to perform,
Right.
and that's how they get that. So there's very, very few that will fall below the minimum, the 3%.
And if they don't, they've been being counseled.
Correct. At some point, there's something that's preventing them
Reasons
from being that. Yes,
for
there's
that to occur that
Right.
we will know about.
right, and it's not any surprise when it happens because
Okay, very good.
they're good at communicating this to their people.
Good.
So
Yeah. This budget amount also includes plans to add 4 staff positions to the system, and I've kind of summarized those things for you. But one would be actually having a full-time custodian. Right now, we contract out our cleaning for the northern branches, the Harrisonville and our Sioux Pleasant Hill, and it leaves some to be desired on quality, I'll say. And the way that it's worked is, these cleaners come in, we don't know who they are, we don't know if it's a consistent people that come to the same locations or if they rotate around. It's hard, we can't communicate with them because we don't see them. And we just had a lot of, they just don't do a comprehensive type cleaning.
So will this be in place of that? You're saying at the new?
Yes, but I think it needs to be a transitional
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
And what my idea is to hire a full-time custodian this next year, start them here at NRC because it's our biggest location that tends to get the worst service just because it's bigger and, um, and get them in a groove here so we wouldn't have the cleaning service come here anymore, but we'd still have them go to the other places. And then as that routine and everything gets established, then we'd add, maybe Pleasant Hill next to that.
A new custodian for Pleasant Hill?
No,
Just
the same
Okay.
person. Now, eventually it might be
you-
that we would need to add another one, but I would like to see first what we could do with one. Right now, we still have individual custodians that clean once a week at the South branches, and that's fine. But I just don't anticipate, like, whenever those cleaners are ready to move on from that job, I don't see us being able to find someone to replace them to come clean for 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday.
Right.
And so we would, as we attrit those cleaners, then we would have a custodian
Transition into.
yeah. So that's the plan. That's what I would like to do. And I think, this way we could have them, they would be cleaning while we're here. We would know who they are. We'd be able to communicate better about expectations and control the supplies that they're using and all of that. So that's the idea that I have for that.
Are we already buying a lot of the supplies that the cleaning service uses?
But now they supply their supplies right now.
Okay.
We still supply the branches with cleaning products because clearly things happen when the cleaners aren't here.
Right.
And so they take care of the things if they need to. So we're already still, clearly it wouldn't be the volume of what we'd be buying with custodian staff. But
Sure.
this also includes an HR manager. So as you know, Pat is our sole HR expert. And the organization is growing, and she does not work full time, but you'd think she does.
I thought you did, Pat.
Yeah. But we need to build out that department and have someone that is full time to be available for all the staff needs. And there's varied things like with compliance and legal, onboarding and training responsibilities. It's multifaceted what HR does. And so we would keep a generalist role clearly, but then we would also have an HR manager. And then 2 assistant branch managers for our 2 busiest branches, and that is here and that's Harrisonville. And both of these branches have more than 15 staff members. They're open the most of all of our locations, 61 hours a week. It is a lot for one full-time person to manage, especially when you've got different shifts. You've got people that are only coming in and working evenings and weekends. And as much as those managers try to cross paths with everybody and work with them, it just doesn't happen as much as they'd like to. So an assistant manager that would also be full time. You can kind of split. There would be plenty of times that the manager and the assistant would be working together as a leadership team, but then also this would allow for consistency in leadership across all the hours that the locations are open. And would help them a lot with staffing too, in general. So
Right now, do the branch managers vary their hours throughout the week, or do they pretty much, just depending on their branch and how they?
I mean, each manager works opening shifts one evening a week,
Okay.
one weekend a month is the expectation.
Okay.
But even with that, there are some, we have some subs that only work only available specific evenings.
Right.
So this would increase so the crossover of management with those subs.
there's Rod has said it before too. He's really wanted to be able to spend a lot more time going out into the community, and he's got to hear a lot.
Yeah.
And so we project that if there are assistant managers on the leadership team, that would free the managers up to be able to be out more
In the community.
in the community.
That's cool.
And then the benefits, health insurance, we're still waiting on the numbers for what that will be next year. So there will be an updated draft when we have that information. And of course, all of the other benefits kind of go hand in hand with the actual, staffing that we have and who's eligible for those things. So.
Any questions from anybody with respect to the personnel before you move on to operations?
Right. Rents is relatively straightforward. The only variable that we're kind of just trying to account for is if we're in a month-to-month lease with Drexel. So negotiating a lease with them will likely, because our rent has not gone up with the market, it will likely go up. And we're anticipating that. And we've already received the letter for what the payment would be at the Harrisonville location in 2025, which is approximately $10,000, what they're showing for operating expenses. So we're just factoring those dollar amounts in here with the other existing leases that are continuing.
Great.
Utilities is pretty much the same, and this is based off of what we have spent up through August of this year. And of course, we're projecting cost increases on that because we all know those don't stay stagnant. And of course, we've got Royal Street now, so that is an additional expense. Building maintenance, it's kind of the same thing. We've got the Royal Street Annex on now, so we will have considerations for that. And like I said, I'm still holding on to some funding for contract cleaning just to make sure that if we switch over to custodian, that we do that in the best possible way, and we don't just cut it all off and say, take care of all of this.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah. Supplies actually went back down to previous year number. I think 2023 was at 68,000 for supplies. I think there was anticipation for an increase in need of like paper products and things like that for the Pleasant Hill location moving into there, but just what we've been spending so far this year, it doesn't look like.
Something like that.
Yeah. And the stuff that we need for processing, all of that stuff is pretty much staying about the same as expectations. So we're not anticipating any increases on that line. The activities are slightly less, but it's not because
We're doing less.
we're doing less.
I know everybody's always like, oh.
It is not. This still accounts for the same amount for the branches to utilize for their programming needs. But what we did, there were a couple of subscriptions that we had in this budget line. One was for Beam Staff, which is how we keep track of people who sign up for reading challenges and how they log everything. And the other is LibCal, and that's what we use to have our events, registrations, and room reservation system and stuff. And I just went ahead and moved those over out of the activities. I know why they were in there because they kind of manage activities, but I moved them over into automation because that's kind of where a lot of our subscription type services are.
Yeah.
And to me, it just made sense. So that's why you see a little bit of a difference, but that's the only difference that there is.
I think we can skip over the postage and
Yeah.
that
It's pretty straightforward, and there's nothing anticipated to change there. Equipment rental,
Six up again, isn't it?
probably.
I think I've read somewhere it was.
Probably. Equipment rental is strictly copy print leasing, and we did go with a new company this year and switched out those copiers, and so this is the price difference of going with the new company. This also adds the coin ops that we have historically had for patrons to release their prints and pay for them has just been cash and coin. But with this new lease, we went with a system that also takes card payments. So that pretty much makes that whole process more self-sufficient for patrons. and hopefully more accessible because I don't know, I don't carry a lot of cash like around with me anymore. So if you need to print something, you might be more likely to be able to do that with those. Um, vehicle operations, the the IT facilities van, which used to be the courier van, is like a 2016 model, so we're anticipating probably some additional maintenance on that due to its age. The bookmobile, the actual RV that it's made from is like a 2014 or 2016 thing. And of course, as you know, we've had various issues with the bookmobile. So we're just anticipating all of those things for next year. For cost of vehicle operation. And as you'll see later in this budget, there's some additional in there for the operation of an additional fleet vehicle for the library that would be dedicated to outreach services. That I can get into more detail. I can talk about that now or when we get there.
We'll just wait till we get there.
Um, travel and dues. This is essentially mileage for travel when staff travels between library locations, or maybe if we send them to a conference that they're going to drive into. And then also just the dues that we have for like our professional organizations and like Kiwanis and Chamber of Commerce memberships and things of that nature. Professional development, this is one that you'll see a significant increase in. I added, so in this year, the foundation, thankfully, gave us $10,000 to be allotted for staff development and appreciation. And with that, I think we're making really good use of that in our staff development day that we're going to have here in a couple of weeks. It's going to encompass both staff training and also some appreciation. And so I want to continue that trend and I want to ensure that we continue to do that for our staff. And so I have added $10,000 into this line to ensure that we'll be able to do that next year as well.
And you're talking about here, I see you right, you said focus heavily on customer service training. So doing like right at the branches and kind of having like a system wide where it's kind of everything's the same sort of
Yeah.
training. I mean, I'm assuming they get the same training as it is, but you're wanting to do more customer service training.
Yes.
I think focus in some specific ways with everyone in the same room, talking, using the same terminology and talking about just approaches and hopefully that does equate to, yes, everyone approaching customer service in similar ways. And we've got a trip planned for
2 weeks. Oh, yeah, the one in 2 weeks.
yeah,
Oh, with Crystal?
yeah.
Yes,
So
that's 2 weeks.
just making sure that everyone's getting the same information.
Yeah.
And hoping that that helps.
Yeah, we like to just build kind of like a culture of customer service and stuff. I think like what you see here, it's played on in the budget. The majority of what we spend money on is the people.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll offer services. There'll be some that we'll be able to, some that we won't be able to. Those will change over time with what people like and don't like, what we can afford and what we can't afford. But the thing that we can keep consistent, the thing that we have the control over is what kind of service that we're giving.
Yeah.
And so we're known in the community for being an excellent service provider through the library. I think that's kind of what I would like. So I would like for anyone to be able to walk into any branch and you're going to get that same kind of attention. And yeah, same terminology, all of that.
Yeah.
And everyone will have a customer service based goal for 2025. Again, not 100% cookie cutter, but focused in the same direction.
Yeah.
Finding ways to help people for whatever reason they came in.
Nice.
Insurance, so exciting. We clearly we just went out for bid on our insurance carrier, and so you know we've got the premium for that. There's a cushion because that will re-up in the middle of 2025, and usually insurance rates don't stay stagnant. So we've got projected 10% premium increase on that. And then there's also some allowance there for, if we get a new outreach vehicle, we're going to have to insure it. And, additional staff positions. There's like workman's comp and various things that we need to account for. So all of that is in that budget line. Marketing and promotion. Some of the money, and this is a little bit less, some of that has been removed because it kind of, to me, there was a little allowance in there for like signage and billboard kind of thing. I don't really see, and neither does Danielle when I talk to her, as doing billboards or anything like that. And so I figured, as far as signage too, that is more in the realm of what Zach handles through facilities and things like that. So I just took that out. But otherwise, I left everything essentially the same as it has been. It's been adequately funding, like when we go to chamber meetings and we pay to be in festivals, and using the Savannah platform that we use for our marketing insights and doing re-engagement campaigns and email blasts and things like that. All of that is in here and should be the same. Yeah. Professional services, so this is all of those kind of contract things that we don't do in-house and we contract out. So that would be our legal consulting, like what we're doing with Steve Potter right now, financial payroll, like if we were to engage with Steeple, that would come out of here, payroll ADP.
Is our stifle, whatever, is that contract expiring soon?
Right now, we haven't needed to
We
bring
just
them in
say
for
yes,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I would kind of assume that as we kind of hone in a little bit more on a capital improvement plan, sort of how we want to start, we'll bring them in on the financial side to kind of help us. So we'll just pay for that, and that's built into
That's
here.
built into here. I anticipate as we move farther into this capital improvement process and we start really kind of visualizing some specific things, we're gonna use this to get some experts in to help us go the right direction and make the right choices on those projects.
Question for you we talked about the capital improvement thing, and you were talking about kind of next step going into the community and stuff like that. Are we thinking we would do those in the branches to where it's not an increase in what we're going to be spending, like if we needed to go rent someplace or something? Is that, or were we thinking, and if not, do we have it built in somewhere, just like if we need to rent someplace to have a community?
Community needs assessment.
Yeah.
I think I've
My
always
experience
envisioned
with
those being
is-
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've
Pretty
imagined, but
open to whomever
Yeah.
wants to come. I don't know that it would make sense to have them not
Yeah.
in the library. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess unless we wanted to have it in a community where we couldn't facilitate, like if we wanted to have it in Archie, that the Archie branch just really couldn't handle what we were trying to do, that would be an exception.
Or if you felt like you peculiar didn't want to come here for that, or
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that.
There might be some exceptions, but yeah, I think to me it makes sense to have it in.
I agree. I just wondered if there was the thought to, would we maybe need something built into the budget in case we need it, in case we were thinking about doing
I
it.
think we could find that where we would need, if we would need it.
Yeah.
Like it.
Sometimes I just talk out loud and things come out now.
Automation support, this is what I was talking about earlier. So all of the fees that we pay to be a part of things. So, and I've talked about, Lori and I have talked about what this is called, and does that make any sense to you guys about it being called automation? But what that comes from is, like, if you remember in the libraries of old, there was the card catalog and there was the stamp and the little, card they put on file and everything. Well, that was not automated, right? That was all just manual. Well, over time with technology and everything, like libraries have gotten automated, which means that we use computer systems to keep track of things. Well, we also, in doing that, are able to network and be a part of consortiums and have access to resources that other organizations, other libraries and things have. electronically. And so I think that's the origination of why this is called that, because these are all the things. Like this is our Evergreen Consortium membership. This is our Amigos membership. Our Mid America Library Alliance, they handle courier when we do interlibrary loan with other library systems. It's all of that kind of stuff is in here. So that's why it's called that.
It seems like an odd term, like, oh.
It's a very library term.
Okay, it seems like a very old
Yeah.
term.
Yeah, it is. But Lori and I were batting around ideas. We didn't come up with anything better. I was like, we'll try next year, but for now, we'll just leave it.
Yeah.
Leave it as
The way it is.
As long as you're consistent, we just know what it is. What does it matter, I guess?
Right. Yeah, this does include adding a new resource, and we've talked about, doing the diversity audits that Sarah does on the collection, and we did pay a hefty sum to have that done by, I think it was Baker and Taylor, last year, and if we get this collection HQ resource, not only could we do that for ourselves whenever we want to do it, we can do a lot more collection management with this software.
Well,
I mean, the audit would be free. This would have
Yeah.
a cost.
Okay, but if it was in-house,
Yes.
so it would be one of our people that
Yeah.
were already,
Yes.
okay.
Rather than relying on
Yeah.
somebody else to do it for us, which I mean is not bad, but especially because it's a focus right now in our strategic plan, I think we need to be able to look at that when we want to and not pay $12,000 to have it done.
Because the election HQ will be a lot less than that.
Yes, it would, but it also will do a lot more. It's more robust. Like you can go in and it will tell you, like we do a lot of collection management does involve what we call weeding or deselecting of materials. And a lot of that is, they run lists about like what hasn't circulated in a certain amount of time and all of this. And all that's done through Evergreen. But Collection HQ is a kind of a better interface. And you can go in and you can pull up you can target various parts of the collection and say, show me, what is circulated in this period of time, what hasn't. Stuff that's circulated a lot, which means it's probably in really bad shape and you might need to replace the copy. Like it'll tell you that kind of stuff too. It's easier to run those reports. It's a lot more user friendly, and we might be able to give access to our branch managers to be able to do that too. Right now, like if we try to run that stuff through Evergreen, all of that has to come from Sarah or Scott.
I think that idea.
Technology, this you'll see a very big increase. So the plan is there's a plan attached to that. The computers are in the system are aging, and we're looking at doing some replacement of that this year. We've decided to roll it on into next year and go ahead and hit NRC, Pleasant Hill, Harrisonville, administrative staff at the Royal Annex, and get the computers replaced and updated. And that's basically just because they're aging and we need to stay on top of it before they hit failure.
What's the average, we'll ask the tech guy, what's the average length of time we can expect from, like, when did we buy these computers that we currently have?
I don't know the exact month, but I do know it was purchased and installed within 2018, 2019 timeframe. So typically in a business, or in this case, public setting, you can expect the turnover for computers to be up or getting out of date within 6 to 8 years.
Okay.
And we're within that 6 to 8 year time frame as we're talking.
Yeah.
So mostly just wanting to stay on top of that so we don't run into a case of having 12-year-old computer that no longer staying. Like some of the biggest things is it's not even just things that you break over time,
Sure.
but also that hardware is no longer supported, and the next thing we know, we can't get on the newest version of Windows, and then we're not getting security updates, and all of a sudden we have an entire room full of desktops that are not secure.
Yeah.
Just that become
Mm-hmm.
actual security threats.
Yes.
So just trying to stay on top of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So do we do the other branches in 26 then?
That's the plan.
How many total computers is that?
I can give you a rough number, but I can give you an official number in a minute. It is approximately. Are you talking about just next year?
No, total, and then maybe
Total?
next.
Dude, 160.
Wow.
I kind of fitting that number a little bit by maybe 20, give or take. What goes in give. but I actually have that.
And then next year, you're is it about half of them or so?
Next year actually is just it's slightly over half.
You think we
It is over
right?
half.
When you can say.
I will say the next following year will actually be a little bit less of a blow, or it will still be spread out a little differently. It might involve computers, but maybe even the receipt printers because those are also getting pretty old and just a lot of them break. So yeah, the North branches of course have more computers by a substantial amount, especially if you have factor in the patron computers. They have more than double what the South branches have. So yeah, when we get to the next following year, there's a whole other there. We're not doing admin at that point, so actually, yeah, there's less buildings and less computers overall. So
Gotcha.
this is the worst of it.
Okay. Cool.
I have a question. What do you load on the computers? Windows. Do you also load, for the patron computers, do you load any of the Office suite?
Yes, and I have been going through and that this doesn't include as much of that as we still have enough licenses of current gen stuff, but possibly next year I'm gonna have to add some stuff. Yes, we load of course the newest version of Office. I at least do know we don't have any Office version older than 2016, so it's still relevant. But I would say probably the next year or two, I'm gonna make sure everything's 2022 and up.
How much demand do we have for the Office suite from the patrons?
It's on every single patron computer. Essentially, you can get a license that is for computer labs, so I just have to buy it so many times and can use out so many various amounts.
Okay.
It's on her computer, it sounds like.
It's not quite per computer. I think it's it totals. They allow me to put it on. I think five, if I remember right. So I essentially have to buy a license for every 5 computers.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not the cheapest licenses, but we thankfully, thanks to foundations and whatnot, we do have bookings sticking up at a discounted price thanks to like TechSoup and stuff.
Right.
So, but yes, I do have to keep up with that stuff as well. And I have a little cushion here in case that would be the case. I need to go get some fun. Because I find out like every year it seems I somehow have like 5 I didn't know about. That one's a little more wishy-washy. There's no real way to truly track that.
Yeah.
Of course, I can go up to staff and ask around. I coming from me personally, I know at least there's definitely per range a handful will come in dedicatedly use Word or Excel, as I have been called and asked many questions about it. For the number, I don't have exactly. So, I most patrons when they come in and ask and whatnot, or it feels like they have the expectancy that that is a common installed, pre-installed thing.
So on the approximate, give or take, 160 computers, how many are actual, your estimation, like actually patron computers versus staff?
Yes. So,
Just kind of a rough idea.
if we took out admin as a factor, patrons outnumber staff. But once we add admin, it's almost a 50-50 split actually. And that's also that gets a little gray line only because we also have now meeting room laptops. Well, now we don't really have computer labs anymore. We do the meeting room laptops, and actually thanks to the foundation, we just added some that aren't sitting. So if I were to add those in, patrons tend they count as patron computers, so they actually outnumber staff computers by a decent amount. So, and I will say this number here actually is upgrading desktops, and then we'll also be upgrading some laptops in the next 7 years as well. So I know I might be a
He's
very
looking at
happy
me
face.
because I drive him nuts about it. You, yes.
Steve. Thank you, Zach.
Oh yeah, no problem. And yeah, I'm working on some trash to hold that up for you guys. Like that bad.
We can move on for now.
Okay. Okay, in materials, you'll see a slight shift. It's essentially a shift in the book's budget. We took $10,000 off the book budget and put it over into ebook audiobooks. And that was really specifically Sarah who purchases for adult. she can maintain, she can try better to maintain the demand for the resources that we have at the adult level. And she feels like she can make that sacrifice off of the print materials. Um, Scott, though, is fine with the way that his budget has been balanced. So that 10 was just for hers, for the adult collection. And the periodicals, this basically is, we are not going to get the print Kansas City Star anymore. It's not consistent and it keeps getting more and more expensive. Like it's over $1,000 for like one location to have yeah. And we have Newsbank, which is an electronic resource, and you can look at the Kansas City Star if you want to look at it like it looks when you hold the paper. You can look at the visual version of it, but you can also look at the text format if there's anything in particular you're wanting to look at. So we do have that resource for people, but so basically we're just going to let the current subscriptions run out, and that won't happen all at once on all of the same branches. There's some that I think before we made this decision we had gone ahead and renewed, so it might be the end of 2025 before some of the locations stop seeing that. But that is the biggest thing there. That was a tough call to make, but it's becoming unfeasible. And I think you said that Conan had even talked about doing that or had done it.
Some branch managers there, myself included, stopped doing it because it just wasn't cost effective. And the last I heard, they were also making a plan to switch to a digital solution and not getting the paper version for all the reasons that I mentioned. And so the delivery is sporadic and
That's where the irregularity comes in. So,
yeah.
So for example, Garden City used to get theirs delivered the traditional way. Well, last year, the year before, they lost the person who did the delivery to Garden City, and they never found anybody to replace them. So that had to go to a mail subscription. Well, you don't get the paper on the day it comes out
yeah.
if you have it done by mail. Now, when I first started working in libraries, there was still a fair amount of people that regularly would come in the morning as soon as we opened, and they would sit down and they would read the newspaper. But that has dwindled, and I'm not saying no one does it, but it's just not.
It's not as common.
It's not as common as it
We
used
asked
to be.
branch managers if they could envision this or what the effects might be, and more than half said they didn't think it would have a huge effect. The ones that did had sort of near what people were looking for and felt like they could be comfortable either showing them the digital version or even printing on the sections that they knew people wanted to read from that, which, I'd say it's
I was gonna say
hundreds of
that one. I was
dollars.
gonna say that's probably a lot cheaper than.
A couple of sheets of paper
Yeah.
in a few days. Yeah.
But we are keeping, of course, we have a couple of local papers that are still publishing in print, and we're keeping those. So Tribune Times will be at all of the branch buildings, and North Cass will be in the northern part of the county. So we're keeping that. There is a paywall for those electronic versions that people would have to encounter if they wanted to look at it electronically. So we don't want to put them in that position. And their subscriptions are much more
I was
affordable.
gonna say, so for those two, we do both paper and electronic. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Oh,
those two
the paper.
we will keep the print. We have a login to the electronic version just because we subscribe to it, but it's not in such a way that we could give that to
To the
patrons to
patrons.
utilize.
Gotcha. Yep.
But that's basically it. Everything else in periodicals is essentially the same. We're not looking at, the magazine is just a weird thing right now. It has been for a few years where lots of magazines just go out of print. Popular, or ones that used to be popular, are going out of print. And look for what you can to try to replace that, as far as topic and scope and things like that. And find some stuff, but he handled the periodical.
It just seemed to kind of even out. Things got more expensive. Some ceased to exist and you refilled it with something similar and a cost of about the same, but it's still kind of unpredictable year to year and kind of trending
Down.
towards digital.
See, it's such a name for people still come in and read magazines.
That's trended down.
Sometimes,
But I think the managers will have a better insight into what they're seeing. You know.
so they tend to disappear. I mean, the specific ones go, people take them and presumably read them or use them. So, but we don't, because we don't check them out, we don't really track, hard and fast numbers of who's checking out which magazines.
No, that's pretty much the same. Report on that.
Do we expect DVD donations from families that no longer want those DVDs?
We do. I don't know that we've ever put those into the circulation though. I think those have tended to be handled just like the books where arrange if they can use them like with for their bingo for books prizes that's popular to do or we send them to Better World Books and they'll take care of getting them resold. Electronic resources. This is a huge increase, and this is anticipation for Hoopla. So Hoopla is the pay-per-use resource that we have, and it offers like streaming, like movies, TV, streaming music. There's ebooks through there too, and e-audio. Sarah has looked at that resource versus Overdrive. Like do we need to have both Hoopla? Do we need to have both? And what she's found is that people are using Hoopla for things they can't get through Overdrive.
Remind me again, which one is Libby in?
Libby's in Overdrive. But when we started with Hoopla a couple of years ago, it's my understanding what I believe is like that you can kind of pay up front. You can say, here's X amount of dollars, and when that's running out, we'll start. So if they would charge the monthly expense to that lump sum that we had put in
Per unit.
per unit, and so that ran out just September. And so now, but the monthly cost has been averaging around $3,000 to $4,000 a month for how people have been using it. So that's what we're projecting is approximately that same usage for next year, and that's what you see.
I think to me the automated isn't as strange as separation between the ebooks and e-audio books and the electronic resources because of that overlap, and I can get like, okay, wait a minute, where's it coming out of?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and they are because that we have classified that as an electronic resource.
right. So it's like, okay, wait, what? Has there been thought ever to just combine them, or do you like separating it because it's actually these are materials in the sense of books?
We curate. I guess the difference to me is we curate what is purchased in books and the
In
this stuff. Yes,
And
we can't
this,
curate Hoopla.
gotcha,
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just access to what they have, and
gotcha.
they can add stuff and take stuff away, and we have no control for it.
That helps.
We are still, Scott and I are looking at the subscription databases that we have as those come up for renewal, just to see if it's done, that if it's getting used.
Yeah.
And so we've already dropped a few things this year. And like I said, like Scholastic, we won't renew next year, but we do want to look and see what might be useful. And so like he found a resource that is language learning, and it's geared towards children. And it's not, I think I was surprised it was less than $2,000 for a year. So
But this is also where genealogy resources are. Right?
Yes.
Like Ancestry.
Ancestry Fold 3.
Oh, yeah.
But are those paid for through the library or through genealogy?
We pay half, and the genealogy endowment if there's enough money in there that it has earned, goes to pay the other half of the ancestry.
Okay.
And I believe we've been paying for the others, like for the full three, which is military records, research.
Okay.
Probably newspapers is in there. It's called
Oh,
newspapers.
yeah, the newspapers,
Yes.
resources in there. And I feel like there's one more. Those,
It's free.
that's free. Yeah. Those actually are like get the most usage. Like combined, all of our genealogy themes of electronic resources get the most usage of all of our stuff that we.
And not simply through genealogy, but you're saying just patrons in general.
Mhm.
Nice.
Well, its ancestry drives a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because, that's quite the. Now, granted, you don't get access to quite all of the things that you could do in ancestry if you had your own subscription at home, but there's still a whole lot that you can do. And so that's definitely, as long as that's the case, that's going to get a lot of usage.
Yeah.
I think Fold 3 a lot too because of that military record. So that's a true genealogy research. Fold 3.
So looking at the most fit, it looks like on October 24th or whatever, genealogy will have the accrued interest of about $8,700. So if we'll throw that at ancestry and some of those things.
Will that be in their account? And yes, because they earned that last year as well, they paid half this year for ancestry, and we paid half. So
Okay.
yes, that goes in their account.
But
That's
we anticipate they're going to use up all of that $8,700 in interest, won't they, for their things? Some of their things.
probably not. We've sit and look at that, but the ancestry is a total of 5,000. So I'll split it with them.
So
I mean, we only started splitting with them when the interest rates went down. Actually, then we used the endowment funds to pay that total for a long time.
right.
So we could pay that total again. So
Okay.
yeah, we have.
If you were contributing to help
Yeah,
continue.
Right.
Yeah.
this is the first time we've had extra.
First time we've had extra money. Okay.
So that'll be decided what to do with that.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Good. It's
Yeah.
a good thing to have.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Thank you for clarifying that. That helps me on understanding the difference. All right, let's move on. Capital services.
So this one, I think you'll see furniture and equipment and also branch improvements. And so furniture and equipment, that's what branch furniture, and that could be office furniture, that could be patron seating, that could be, any kind of things like this, the tables and stuff like that. I will note that when you buy things that have longevity in a public space, you pay a lot more than what you would think you would pay for something like a table or shelf.
Or a chair.
Or a chair. Yeah.
In the kids' area.
Yeah. So there's that. This is what we pull. So when we get those budget requests that we ask for from branches and also asked from department heads this past year of anticipated needs in furniture and equipment for next year, the items that we approved, which is not just because they asked for it, they get it. It still goes through an approval process.
Yeah.
So if it's approved, that would come from this budget line. But this budget line is not an actual, there's not $100,000 worth of requests that have been made.
Right.
That is the amount that is in there to cover anything that would fall in this category that would come up over the next year. So, the example I've given is that, we didn't anticipate having a whole nother location that we would need to outfit with desks and furniture when this budget was put together for 2024. But because we have this budget line, we were able to furnish the annex that we added this year. So it's the same idea for next year.
Gotcha.
Branch improvements is the same idea, it's just the category is different and it has more to do with facilities that we have. So there's some things that have been specifically requested, like putting in an irrigation system at Pleasant Hill, which I think is a fantastic idea. Um, but then there's other potential things that we might do. The difference that I have between this and what we're talking about with capital improvements is, to me, this is smaller, one-off type projects that we might come across to do to enhance the buildings or to fix something that we need to do. Where I'm looking at capital improvements as the bigger picture type things and stuff that's probably going to be more involved, more expensive. So there is a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
In intent for both of those
Right.
categories. And the automotive, that is, and I actually bumped this up from the first draft that you received from 50 to 65 because I started doing some research. But what I would like to do is add an outreach services vehicle that is just like a SUV or a minivan or maybe a smaller transit van. Because what they've been doing, and it is attempting to take the bookmobile everywhere in the county, but it's not always needed to have the bookmobile there. Like if the people aren't using bookmobile is a mobile branch, so there's a browsable collection, there's Wi-Fi computer use, you can print all of those kind of things. But some of the places that they're going, like they're going in to do an early literacy story time in a daycare, or they're dropping off books in a senior center, or they're just going to a place where historically the folks are placing holds and picking up their holds there. And I feel like they can do a lot of those things in a company vehicle. And I still want to do like the route, like make it look like a mini bookmobile. But they can do that on a smaller scale, and then we wouldn't have to staff it with two people. It could just be the one, like Kim could just
The
go.
extra wear and tear on the.
Yes,
Exactly,
the
that's what you're
bookmobile,
saying.
it's a lot of wear and tear on the
Yes.
bookmobile to take it out as much and as far and as often as we do. So we could reserve that for more specialized outings and then use this for, and it's, the maintenance on this is easier, cheaper, you can take it to a lot more options with
And-
limited.
And pretty much anybody with a driver's license.
Correct.
can drive it instead of
Yeah.
having to get an actual.
And we could get something, there's options for what I'm thinking of is something, it wouldn't need a huge cargo area. It wouldn't be outfitted with shelving or anything like that. It would basically be just to carry materials. So maybe you're taking several totes full of items somewhere. But, something that has seating. So, we go on another facility tour. We might take our own vehicle on
What
that.
did you call that? The board.
Oh, goodness gracious.
But we could use it, as an extra fleet vehicle for the library, but primarily, and I think it would most of the time be in use with outreach services, but that would be the goal. And so that is why you also see some additional things throughout the budget that are higher, because it's anticipating if we move forward with that, we're going to have those additional expenses as well.
Can we buy it through the buyer's program like we bought the other van?
I think so, and I need to learn more about how that works. And that's why it's possible the price, this might be overshooting.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I think it is. Well, it's state of Missouri, I believe, some kind of a buyer's program.
There's like a
Procurement
procurement.
that,
Yeah.
we didn't get it from Old Latham Ford, but they bought it through a consortium. So we just need to go back and look and see, read, do you have information on that? But before we just go out and buy a van, let's try the consortium first.
Yeah.
It's a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And so the reserve funds is basically kind of what's left. It doesn't have to be that way. The capital improvements is very, that's purposeful to put that amount there. And like I said, that's to start setting aside money that is specifically intended for the library system to move forward in capital projects. And the reserve carryover then would be the remaining amount of the anticipated revenue that is going to go basically to sit. Because we do need to have reserves. We need to have money that is not earmarked for anything other than potential emergencies. And so that's what the remaining amount, the 269, 467, is when you take all that into account. So there it is. My first library budget.
Well done.
Like the 65 we may not, and
Yeah.
furniture, we may not 100, and branch improvements, we may not 100. So these, and which is wise to budget a little bit more. So capital improvements might get more than 300,000.
It's possible, yeah. And I mean, Gloria said, we have yet to spend 100% of what the budget has been. I don't get upset if we don't spend everything on a budget line.
Especially if it's going to go someplace where it might help us get a building.
Right,
Right. I'd love seeing savings grow.
What do you tell your staff at the November meeting? Oh, you still got 25% in your budget for this year.
it depends on what it is because, if I'm looking at that and there's a concern as to why that hasn't been spent, because I know like programming, that would be a really red flag to me as to why that hasn't been spent. But if it's like, a supplies budget still has a bunch in it, well then it just does because we didn't need what we thought we would need or they've gotten really good at being super frugal and things or
Yeah.
whatnot.
And did just update all the branches with their third quarter. Here's what your programming budget is remaining. Please work to spend that.
Yeah, like we gave them professional development budgets. Really, it's not like giving them a budget, but it's saying, hey, we're going to earmark this amount of money out of what we have for professional development. We want you to use this in your branch for your folks, you and your folks. And sometimes maybe they're just more well versed in it or they get more excited about it, but they have, really utilized it. And then there's others that I don't know if they just don't know what resources there might be or whatnot. And to me, I want them to use that. Like I think that's valuable. So that would be one of those instances where I would be like, why do you still have this that you haven't used? Give it to me now. I'll use it. I'll do something for all of you.
Is there any questions, comments, something you want to see? I mean, obviously we'll have a chance to discuss again at is it next week's meeting?
Next
Yeah,
week.
next week's
Today.
next week's regular meeting, and then we will. I mean, we want to approve whatever the budget is we determine. We want that to be approved at our November meeting. So anything that if something comes up, it doesn't seem that anybody has any questions really tonight. If something comes up as we're going through, make sure you get that to Robin. She'll come go over that in a meeting where everybody can hear it in case, hey, I didn't even think about that. Thanks for asking that question, Sherry, or whatever. Then we can all step off. But the expectation is that we will approve the budget at the November meeting. So we have sometimes the November meeting.
What if we have no issues? Can we approve it at the October meetings?
I mean, I guess it's possible to approve at the October meeting. The only thing I would say is there might. I was going to say I think there's. Yeah, I think usually historically, yeah.
Okay. Might not. I mean,
But
it could, but I don't know if we'll have mine.
the goal will be the November meeting.
We would ask that if the insurance is way different than what we're thinking or whatever, that we get an email about it, if that's possible to do. But if it's between the October and the November meeting, so that we can plug that into our chart into our heads or whatever.
Well, I know Lori talked today, and it wasn't any kind of firm number, so I didn't want to change anything on this. But like she was told, well, from what they have seen with like other libraries and health insurance and things like that, like it'd be safe to assume a 10% increase, which is higher than what we have on this piece of paper. But I said, let's just leave it with what you've got because I don't want to throw 75 different numbers
Right.
at folks. But so there's that.
And it's usually by the end of October you have that, right, Lori?
Yep, they said mid-October, which is next week.
Like next week.
But then she also told me today she was on vacation next week. But then she said, but I have a note as soon as I get it to send it to you. And I was like, okay. She said, oh.
Vacation.
Exactly. Well, all next week. So, but I mean, as soon as she gets it, she'll send it to me. It's just whenever Blue Cross sends it to her, it's our renewal, and there's not much control we have over that. Yeah.
Right.
So, just whoever comes in, she said, it just depends on claims and all kinds of things that we don't have any control over and that I don't know that information at this point. So it's just an estimate when we go to do the budget. So let you know as soon as we know.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate all of this that you guys put into this. Very thorough and really left us obviously with very little to have to ask a lot of questions about. So appreciate this. Anything else?
The time is in 6:06.
It's just 6:06.
Go Royals.
Oh,
You can't win.
Damn it.